but it's also the degrees that we want to talk about. We are talking less than 1% as Bolivia, because 2% is the reality of the north. 2% is 3% for Africa or for the south. You have to add at least 1 degree to what developed countries are proposing. Let's get real on and the reality of the south has come, and it has to come in numbers.
Speaking of numbers, I want to go to Miguel Rivera, the delegate from Paraguay. Can you talk about RED? There's been a lot of emphasis on how there's going to be a final deal on RED achieved in Copenhagen, and it's being touted as the only way to save the world's rainforests. What are your concerns about RED? How does financing work within RED, and where do the emission cuts come from?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I guess the only thing we agree with the rest of the crowd here is that stopping deforestation is the only way to save the forests. That's basically it. But then, how do you do that? We definitely disagree with the proposals, and especially we don't want to submit our forests to a mechanism that will transform them into mere carbon stocks.
Can you explain what that means?
That means that our forests are much more a guarantee to life on Earth, to life cycles on Earth, to the carbon cycle, definitely. They're the greatest terrestrial reservoirs of carbon, but they're also home to more than 90% of the species that live on Earth, on terrestrial systems. They're home to indigenous peoples. They are sources of water, of fresh water. Just think of the Amazon and think of deforestation. You don't have both. You have deforestation, you don't have the Amazon, you don't have the Paraguay River, you don't have the Paraná River. Those are realities that we have to deal with every day, and if they are reduced to just carbon, well, you lose all that perspective as well.
What's happened to Paraguay, by the way?
Excuse me?
What has happened to Paraguay? How do you experience global warming?
Well, the main feature of global warming in Paraguay is drought and floods, basically with 1 to 2 months from each other. So you have areas of the country that are under tremendous, very severe droughts at the moment that a month ago were completely underwater. And if you take the forest away, all this pumping system that forests provide and storage for that water and purifying systems, natural ones, free of charge, just on our sovereign soil, are gone. Right, so that's why it's not just carbon stocks. So I started by saying, well, saving them is the only thing we seem to agree with, especially developed countries. But we don't want to transform our forests into a trading token, because basically they are worth much more than what they're being valued for. Monetary terms are just incapable of engulfing all those values. And if you look at speaking in the terms Angelica was talking, for instance, the adaptation debt we had from forests in our country will also amount to very, very close to 30–35% of our GDP. Those are the numbers we are working, we're being forced to work with at the moment. We're having people in the street actually because the government is not it's just not capable of providing the cash necessary for adaptation of its citizens, but every person in the street is doing it. So the principle of saving the forests, of course, is we agree with that. We are all for it. Now, the principle of transforming forests into the world's forests, into an offset mechanism to keep on justifying these opulence Angelica was talking about in other parts of the year of the world in this on this minority of the population, that is well, unjustifiable.
We just have a few seconds, and I wanted to ask you, Angelica Navarro, do you see any possibility of a walkout here, of a collapse of the COP15?
Actually, I don't think so. I mean, we are all working very hard here because we know that the stakes are very high and we want extremely ambitious result. So I will be the first to be very saddened by such an outcome.
But we're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank you very much, Angelica Navarro, for joining us, as well as Miguel Lovera. They are the two climate negotiators, the chief negotiators for Bolivia and for Paraguay. And that does it for our show, Democracy Now!, produced by Mike Berkshire, producer Aaron Mate, Angelique Comet, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar. A special thanks to Dennis Moynihan. I'm Amy Goodman with Angelique Comet. Our website is democracynow.org, broadcasting live from Copenhagen.